What's going on, everyone? Taylor Cowles here for CLNS Media, coming at you with another episode of Pat's Daily, brought to you by PrizePicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media. More from them later, but for right now, we got to recap a very busy combine weekend. Obviously, by nature of what the event is, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of mingling and elbow rubbing between all the important NFL people. A lot of stuff goes down. But of course, we also got to get a look at a lot of the prospects. One, we got to see them interview, and then we got to see a lot of these guys on the field. So to help me recap the weekend, some of the just fun stuff that happened in between, all the businessy stuff, and as well as to recap what we saw in some of the winners from the combine, I got with me friend of the show, Daniel Harms. You all know him. You all love him. He's a film analyst for RGR Football on YouTube, works for NFL 33, daily fantasy content creator for Football Guys, and co-host of the Cover One Draft podcast. So busy. My man, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm still recovering. I'm still recovering. You know, yesterday was a long drive back. A lot of people, they got into their Ubers, went to the airport. I hopped in my car and drove 7 hours back to my house. But I'm great. We got to see some historical things happening over in Indy this past week. But I'm doing good, man. How you feeling?
Yeah, man, I'm in the same boat. Like I told you, it was a big R&R day yesterday just to try to get everything regulated again. It's a fun weekend, but also one where just, again, by nature what it is, you don't get a whole lot of sleep, but it was absolutely worth it. So first, I want to start off with the fun stuff, all right? What were some of the highlights for you from Combine weekend? I know one of the ones for me was we had a little bit of trauma bonding, right? We went to St. Elmo's with Brian Hines, who's going to be on next with Alex Barth, Pat's Beat. Make sure you check them out. But we all went to St. Elmo's together, got the infamous shrimp cocktail. Everybody talks about it and how spicy it is, right? Like, it's so hot. I'm thinking, like, is this really spicy or is this, like Midwestern spicy? Like, what are we talking about here? Man, we were both sitting there crying, trying not to just freak out in this fancy place full of people. I will tell you, if you are ever going to go to St. Elmo's and get the cocktail, it's absolutely worth it, but be prepared. It's basically like taking wasabi to the face.
It's not even just, it's not like spicy. Everyone says spicy, and that's like what you inflame. It burns your tongue. This is not the same thing. Like, this is legit wasabi. And like you said, trauma bonding. We got to spend some time together. And I made the huge mistake of taking that top shrimp and going to town. I'm like, okay, that's not that bad. Because the top one didn't have enough on it. Didn't have very much on it. So here I go, putting more of the cocktail sauce on top of the next one. And that's where the pain really began. I feel like right now I don't have the sinuses. Like, they're not there anymore. Like, they're just gone. They were burned away. But the rite of passage is now complete. The tears were shed. The coughing ensued, all of that. It was an experience to enjoy, to have. And I'm glad that we did it. And the next time I go, I can promise you I'm not going to do it again.
We already got it out of the way. So, all right, beyond the trauma bonding, what was the stuff that stood out to you most? Because I know it was my first combine, so everything was really kind of new and fresh and everything. But what stood out to you most, and what's the most fun stuff that we got to do this weekend?
Same for both of us. Both of us attending the combine for the first time, getting to listen to guys talk, and how you could tell that some of these players, they're just really comfortable in the spotlight. They're really comfortable talking to people. And not to say that if you aren't, like, you just be taking off people's boards. Like, that's not how that works. There are just some people that are like Amarius Mims, who he got up there and he just was like the best guy in the world. He was funny. He was having a great time. He had one of his buddies come and ask him a question. Like, there was just a really nice feel about things like that, and getting to see some of these players out in front of the entire media. Obviously, there were some not so great moments from some of the media members that were attending, but we're not going to get into that because we're going to have a good time. And again, the combine, we all kind of remember.
You know.
If you know. But I think at this point, everyone kind of knows. It was all over Twitter, but it was a lot of fun, man. Just getting to again see these guys and the conversations that you have, meeting new people. I met quite a few people that I know on Twitter, and obviously you and I got to hang out, but people that don't follow me, that I don't really know, I got to spend some time having really good conversations. So getting to go down into the stadium and witness some of these guys. The one thing that I really hated was seeing some guys pull up with injuries. Like, that's always tough to watch even in game, but these guys are trying to make make money. They're trying to make lots of money. They're trying to get their draft stock to improve. So seeing that was always tough. But, we got some really insane things that we watched, like Xavier Worthy setting the record it was an incredible moment. That crowd was insane. I mean, I know you didn't get to see it, but on TV, got to see it. So like that atmosphere, I think that played part of the reason why he wanted to do it. Obviously, he wanted the record after that 4.25, but he was like, no, let's go ahead and do this. And the crowd really fed into it, and him celebrating after running over. It was a moment, man. And we all my first combine, we got to witness that. So that was a pretty special moment.
That was incredible. I didn't get to see those drills, but we did get to be on the field together. Not on the field, but we were in the stadium together when we got to see the defensive lineman. Lucas Oil, incredible stadium.
Very cool.
It feels like the seating, you feel like you're always really, really close to the stadium. Just very impressive inside. I know this is a Pats podcast. We don't want to hear about Lucas Oil, the Colts, or nothing about that, but I will tip my cap. Very impressive facilities. So one thing I do want to ask, and I think I might know your answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who's your favorite player to watch during these combine drills? There was one player that you had goo-goo eyes the entire time, and I couldn't blame you.
Man, the defense. I'm not gonna go off the top and just say Byron Murphy because Byron Murphy was insane,
right?
But we bonded over Braden Fisk. Braden Fisk obviously was tested better than most of us expected him to, and then he took all of that athletic testing to the field. Violence, speed, all of the stuff that you want from these guys. He was taking it out on bags, on like burst off the line. He was everywhere in these drills, and he showed. Honestly, I don't think he's going to go day one, but he was probably a round 3 guy for a lot of players. He's more than likely going probably top 50 after his performance. And I always say, don't let the combine shape your decisions. It should always take you back to the film. One thing that people are going to see when they go back to his film is that he lives in the backfield. That always translates. Always. People talk about undersized defensive tackles. I think that the one issue that I have with Braden is that his power and his ability to take double teams is not there. But he is an incredible penetrator, athletic guy, and just motor runs hot all the time. You could see that on there. So he obviously impressed everybody, and we were just like drilling over this guy in the drills. It was so impressive to watch, man.
It was crazy, man. Like, just the fluidity. Everything looked so easy. And then, Devondre Sweat, who obviously is a completely different body type, but just the stark comparison where you'd see, like, Fisk, and then it's like, not to be mean, but I don't think Sweat's going to make it through this one without, like, falling down or knocking over a cone or something. Hey, the guy's 360 pounds. There's only so much you could do. Those drills are not meant for him, but it was incredible getting to see the contrast between all those guys and then just Fisk playing at a completely different level. Yeah. Really exciting. All right, now let's move on to some of the winners that we got to see specifically early on for the offensive side of the ball because, again, it's a Pats podcast, and they could use some help on defense, but the offense needs more than help. They need, all the care packages. So let's start with quarterback. Now, we didn't get to see the top quarterbacks perform, right? Jaden Daniels didn't throw. Drake May didn't throw. Caleb Williams didn't throw. That was disappointing, but we did get to glean a little bit about these guys from their press conferences. Now, personally, I thought Jaden Daniels did what he had to do. I thought Caleb Williams especially handled that first question very well. And then you kind of saw that edge that he's got a little bit. But really who stood out for me was Drake May. Like the confidence that, the Patriots talked about, somebody with a little bit of swaggering for the quarterback position. They keep talking about intangibles more than even the physical traits. It's about leadership, having guys want to play for you, being able to elevate the rest of your team. Drake kept talking about how they were a really explosive North Carolina offense. Yeah. And then you look at the roster and it's like, well, it's probably elevating a lot of guys because they were very explosive and they didn't have a whole lot of NFL talent. And also I thought he was really self-reflective, talking about, I do run to hype up my teammates. I could probably be better about that. Talking about knowing when to run, when to check down. He was aware of things he needed to work on, but I also he was well-researched, had a little bit of nugget about every different coach that interviewed him. I thought he was really impressive. It just seemed easy to him, like a guy who could really handle the spotlight and still be himself. So that was just, for the interview portion. But overall, who were the guys that really stood out to you that you thought won from their performances at the Combine?
Yeah, and when we're going to talk about quarterbacks, obviously for the Patriots, because we know, at least right now, we expect at number 3 to be a quarterback taken. So they didn't have the top guys performing on the field, and I still think that they were the guys that ended up winning. And I'm not saying like JJ McCarthy had a terrible day, but it felt like at times he was there just to show off how strong his arm was. His inconsistency down the field was something that we saw at Michigan multiple times over the last couple of years. And whether or not he was just trying to throw the ball as far as he could in the go ball drill, you have to be able to do some of the things that Joe Milton was doing in that performance. That was one of the most incredible things.
Showing off. Oh my God.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but if you have not, try and find the video that was taken from behind Joe Milton when he holds the football. Obviously, these are typically quarterbacks are getting the snap, taking the drop, and then throwing the deep ball. Joe Milton gets it and then gets into his drop, and then he waits. He waits. The arrogance and the ability to say, I'm going to wait and I'm going to throw this ball as far as I can, not only to do that and then complete the pass in stride. The receiver did not have to slow down in the slightest, and it just dropped in the bucket. And if you see from behind it, you see Joe Milton kind of like, as soon as it gets close to where he sees it, he just kind of like does that and turns around. It was the most amazing thing ever. So if you can find that, go watch that. But they didn't have, the top guys did not have to throw. And we saw inconsistencies from every single quarterback that was throwing. And so when you have that right there, that shows you, okay, they maybe they made the right choice. And just saying, you guys will see me throw at the pro day when I have players that I'm comfortable throwing to. Because all of them are going to throw with guys that they played with. And that brings into a whole different element. So they definitely are the guys that won the day. And like you were talking about with Drake May, showcased all the leadership ability that I think people were maybe questioning because sorry, my dog is just having a time. No problem. But I think that when you have a team like Drake May played with at North Carolina last year, you want to see a little bit more, which I think that he elevated as much as he did. We also saw him run all over the field at times because he didn't have much of a choice. And that's something that we're seeing right now with the quarterbacks 2 and 3. We know Caleb's going 1 because of the way that he kind of addressed a lot of his questions as like, you guys, there's only one team that's going to draft me. That's all. I'm not going to worry so much about everybody else. And that brings in, is Drake May going to go 2? Is the fit with Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels going to push Drake May down to 3? So I'm interested to see what happens there. But like I said, specifically with the quarterbacks, I do think that the guys that didn't perform were the big winners because they didn't have up and down moments.
Yeah. And of the guys that were on the field, I guess you could like kind of point to Bo Nix because he did get to show that he's got maybe more arm than a lot of people thought, but it does make sense. If you don't have a lot that you can do in terms of your stock going up or down, probably just sit it out because like you said, you don't have the chemistry with these guys. It's going to make you look bad, even if it's not your fault. Sure. You know what I'm saying? I do want to ask you about Caleb Williams not doing the medicals, though.
Yeah.
I know, like, you know, Albert Breer was saying, I don't think this is much of a big deal. I feel like everybody else, especially fans, were like, oh, my God, what is this? Why isn't he doing this? What do you think the logic was behind that? Obviously, he said, you know, it's just going to be that one team. Do you think maybe it wasn't the best move in terms of how it is from, like, an outside perspective, a PR perspective? Or do you think, hey, man, it's Caleb Williams. People know what he is. It doesn't really matter if he's not trying to do medicals for, like, all these teams that aren't going to have a shot at taking him.
So it's interesting to me because I know that the national media is painting the picture that Caleb Williams nailed his interviews. That's not the impression that I got walking around in Indy on Saturday. I heard that there were some up and down things. Now, obviously, I can't confirm any of that. I wasn't in the room. Those were just some whispers that I heard myself, that it was not as blow everyone away as the national media has made it out to be. Which does beg the question, what's going on? Like, is the arrogance, because he does not have an agent. So a lot of what happens is through his own team. And I will say one thing that I can confirm myself is that the day I got there, I was walking past Steak and Shake. And he and his team, someone had just bought out the entire restaurant because it was just his team, and there was no one else there. Which is a little weird for a place like a Steak and Shake that you just go and you buy it out.
Yeah,
and
right.
Sit down. Like there's something to that. Now, I understand being the quarterback and having the mentality of you do things my way, and I'm just going to be that kind of guy. So him saying, I'm only going to do medicals for the teams that can draft me, or maybe the teams that I want to do medicals for, there is that I don't care so much about it. But that paired with some of the things, like I said, that I heard about his interviews not necessarily going as well as the national media brings about, just it doesn't make the whole picture very clear.
Yep.
And that's something you'd want to see coming out of the combine. You want to have a better, clear picture. And specifically when it comes to the Chicago Bears, they have to wait to trade Justin Fields now. They have zero medical information on Caleb Williams. So it puts them behind the 8 ball. And maybe that was his play all along, saying, you guys are going to go by my timetable, which you can personally, it bothers me a little bit. I would have liked to see him just get the medicals done. Just get the medicals done and have everyone be able to do that. But that's not how he wanted to go about it. So to each his own. If he doesn't bother you, it's kind of just rubbed me the wrong way a little bit.
And just some of the things I've heard, that kind of feels like a theme where publicly, the discourse around Caleb is pretty positive. But then behind the scenes, it's not quite that way. I've heard rumblings that we even had Brendan Rice, where Caleb goes and asks Brendan Rice a question when he's at the podium.
Yeah.
Looks really fun. Brendan Rice handles it well. I'm not saying Brendan Rice specifically, but I have heard that some teammates will say very nice things about him publicly. And behind the scenes, it's not really the same way. And they don't really think he's as great of a leader as maybe, some storylines have made him out to be. And with the Bears, you have Justin Fields, who, yes, on the field is inconsistent. He has incredible flashes, but even more than that, the Bears do care about the character, especially of a quarterback and someone like a leader, like the Patriots. Justin Fields is beloved by his teammates. He is someone that they will run through a brick wall for. So it becomes much more interesting, especially now that this is happening after the Combine week, where, okay, yes, Caleb is a generational talent. And at the end of the day, if you win and you perform on the field, people are going to give you passes for a lot of stuff, in terms of maybe you got some personality quirks, whatever. It's not going to matter. But even still, you have to do those things. You have to come into the system and you have to adapt at some point and then be that stabilizing factor. If you're not, this is something that can unravel a franchise, where the quarterback is someone that people may not agree with or may not really, want to fight for him that same way. And then you're saying, okay, we just kind of reset the direction of our franchise, and I'm not really sure where that direction's headed. So it's definitely interesting. Caleb's a young dude. A lot of these guys are still learning and growing, and also a lot of this is speculation. We can only relay what we hear. So, I hope the best for him, like I do with all these young guys, but at the same time, it's an interesting situation when you have a player who's so talented, you almost can't pass on him. But if we end up seeing there's some kind of slip or something like that, it kind of gives some perspective as to why that might be. We'll just have to wait and see. It's still very early in the process. Speaking early in the process, we got a lot more stuff coming your way, but first we got to show some love to our friends at PrizePicks. Be right back. Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entries stays live. With Jason Tatum going for the MVP, I'm taking more on his points and rebounds. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So we've actually got some breaking news. The Broncos, according to Ian Rappaport, are officially moving on from Russell Wilson, closing a tough chapter for Denver. So we got to talk about this. I have been saying for a long time I have less than no interest in Russell Wilson as an option for the Patriots, but it's got to get talked about, right? He's on the market. It needs to be addressed. So do you think, as someone who saw him twice the past couple of years in the division, is he someone that you think an organization like the Patriots should try to bring in, or do you think that it's just not really a great fit?
Absolutely not. I think that the Patriots are one of the least likely teams to bring in a guy like Russell Wilson. It's a brand new everything. And we've seen Russell Wilson and exactly who he is when it's a brand new everything with Nathaniel Hackett as the head coach. He got fired during the season. Let's not forget, in large part because Russell Wilson did whatever he wanted to do in that offense. It was whatever he wanted to do. We thought he was Aaron Rodgers over there trying to do everything, and he got the head coach fired. Now, Nathaniel Hackett is not a very good head coach, offensive coordinator. It appears, by everything that we've heard now in New York, that Aaron Rodgers is the offense. Like, he does everything. So aside from all of that, Russell Wilson is not in a position, would not be in a position in New England to do anything because they have, like I said, a whole new culture. He himself has his own culture, and he would want things a certain way, as we've already seen. So that's a big no for me when we're looking at wanting to succeed in New England. Young quarterback, regardless of who ends up being there, Russell Wilson doesn't really stir the drink or the soup if you're trying to make something really last a while there. So I'm out on that for sure.
If you had to play devil's advocate, what could he potentially bring? Just so we can be, well-rounded and focus on, all right, like, he can do this. If for some strange reason the Pats did bring him in, what is something that, or any organization that brings him in, what's something that they can hang their hat on and say, all right, well, at least he gives us this?
It's a 1 year period. You bring in a young quarterback, you bring in Russell Wilson, you say, hey, buddy, you aren't going to be here next year. You are here for one season, and we're basically going to use you to show our young quarterback what to do, how to prepare, because honestly, he prepares extremely well. Like, he still is a very game-focused player. I think last year he looked in much better shape. He got in better shape from 2 seasons ago. So we have the work ethic and the drive to get better. Also, maybe you want another high pick next year. You say, hey, Russ, just go ahead and keep doing what you're doing. For me, like, it's we're going to draft this young quarterback and then let him grow a little bit. But again, if we're talking like a Jaden Daniels, he's already a little bit older. So that situation doesn't work. If we're going to just go ahead and throw this fire, we're going to throw a little gasoline on the fire, say it's JJ McCarthy, and it's at number 3. Then you say, hey, Russ, we're going to take you and we're going to bring you in and let JJ sit a year and learn. And then next year, we're going to take another wide receiver high, pair him with a wide receiver we drafted on day 2, and we're going to start to cook next year. That's the only real way forward I see you bringing in a guy like Russell Wilson in New England.
I also saw a comment in the chat about he brings a great attitude. Maybe
does he?
Lynch or Richard Sherman or anybody that was with him in Seattle. Even ask some people with the Broncos. I'd be very curious to see what the responses would be if you were to say, yeah, Russ brings a great attitude in the locker room. I'm not sure that's true. So, yeah, I think, Dan, you and I on the same page off Russell Wilson. I do not think it should happen. Sure. I don't even see what the benefit would be, quite frankly, especially, like you said, in a new culture where he'd have to be a mentor to a quarterback. We've seen no evidence that he is someone who can be a type of bridge option. Also, T.C. McCartney, the quarterback's coach, and Alex Van Pelt don't have experience with him. So it's not even like you have the Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett thing where it's like, okay, those are older guys, but there's a link there, so it makes some sense. If you want to bridge, Russ is just pretty out of left field. Don't love that. But you mentioned getting wideouts after that. So that's a perfect transition to our next one. Some winners in terms of offensive weapons. This can be wide receivers. It can be running backs. It can be tight ends. Who impressed you most from the combine and you think really helped their stock that could potentially be some options for the Pats?
I think I would say the Texas receivers right away, but I don't think they're going to be an option. I think both of them might have pushed their way into the first round. And I'm going to go Ricky Pearsall because I loved Ricky to begin with. But I think Ricky is a guy that not only offers what he did at Florida, which is a guy who's going to get open at all costs. He can sell lots of different routes. He has a good route tree. They didn't use him as the guy that tested because he jumped out the gym at 42 inches in the vert. He ran a 4.41 40. So he has speed to burn. The one area where he's probably not going to give you a ton is that yards after the catch. He's not the I'm going to make you miss and then go. But we have now some ability to where he's a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, and a better explosive athlete than people saw at Florida. And I'm going to go ahead and attribute that to the fact that Florida's offense is very limited. It's very limited, and his route tree was not as developed, or maybe they didn't ask him to do as much. So a guy like Ricky Pearsall on day 2 would be a fantastic option in this offense to give whoever it is at quarterback, whether either a veteran for a year or a young guy that ends up being drafted at number 3, a quick option. He can be open immediately. He can get open. He can play on the outside and the inside because of his short area burst and the ability to sell in his vertical stem. So he's a guy that really improved his draft stock with his athletic testing. And then, just Xavier Legette. And Xavier Legette had a couple of bobbles in the gauntlet drill. Ball placement isn't fantastic. We saw guys that maybe shouldn't have been throwing footballs during the gauntlet drills.
One who Patriots fans will be very familiar with. I don't even want to call him out because I don't want to be mean, but he's someone who was at camp for the Pats last year. We'll just say that.
Yeah, we'll stop right there because we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But Xavier Legette, who again measured in at 6'1", everyone was like, why isn't he 6'3"? I think that he being 6'1" is great. I think that he more embodies that Deebo Samuel role that I think he could play in the NFL and probably should play in the NFL. He's not going to have the most expansive route tree. He still has some room to grow with his footwork and stem work. But really, outside of the injuries, he's learning how to play wide receiver. Like he basically was, hey, go and bail out Spencer Rattler whenever he doesn't have anything to do with that offensive line. So I'm a big fan of what he brings. And obviously that 4.39 that he ran is exact.
220 pounds.
At 220 pounds is insane.
Get out of here.
Explosive. Like it's exactly what you want to see. He also jumped 40 inches. He's an explosive athletic freak at 220 pounds. And he's still growing. So you draft him with a young quarterback. They can grow together. That is a really good pairing. And also he played quarterback. So he understands space very well. So those guys I really was a big fan of. There's a couple of younger, other lesser known players. Malik Washington didn't run as fast as I expected him to, but 42 and a half feet. 42 and a half inches at his size. He's 5'8". He measured it at 5'8", and, and he jumped
Shrine Bowl stud, right?
42 and a half at 5'8". That's absurd. And he measured in at 190. Weighed in at 191. So this is a built, explosive athlete. So there's a couple of wide receivers I think Washington's more of a day 3 guy, but the Patriots should not be skimping on wide receiver picks. Right. Throw darts. Like just do what you have to do. I think at tight end, we were watching that night when they were going out, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I'm thinking of a different night. It's all kind of blurring together. Actually, no, that was a different night. So tight ends, Theo Johnson out of Penn State is another option. A big athletic guy. He's a good blocker, and we see it all the time at Penn State. They just put out tight ends that do it in the NFL. They just get the job done. And outside of Mike Gesicki, which that's not necessarily his fault,
but some tough situations in his defense.
In his defense, you're absolutely right. But I do think that he was a guy who definitely improved his draft stock, testing well as well. He's a big guy. You can play on the outside in the slot. You can put him as a move tight end as well. He can really help a young quarterback too. So he's someone that I really like. I'd really like to fit in New England. And then quickly with the running backs, there is a lot of fun players who tested not as I expected them to. We could be talking about a Thunder and Lightning complex with. I know he's fast with Stevenson, but he's not as fast as Isaac. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm going to do my best here. Garendo, I think that's how you say it, out of Louisville, who was the number 2 behind Jawar Johnson, or where is his name? It's not Johnson. I can't remember his name, but I do believe Jawar is his first name. So, but he was the number 2 in Louisville. Tested out of his mind. He ran a 4.33. And he had a bunch of, let me just pull up all of his numbers here really quickly, because he had, I believe it was an RAS near 10. Like it was like 9.9 something. Yeah. He has like
him and Theo just like killed it.
Like a 10.9 broad jump at 6. He's 6'2", 220, by the way, as a running back. and a 41.5-inch vertical with a 1.55 10-yard split at 4.33 at 220 pounds. Like, that is, why was he not being used much? I know he played at Wisconsin first and then transferred to Louisville, where he was the second fiddle again. Like, this is somebody who tested extremely well, is going to improve his draft stock and can be a very good complementary piece in a backfield, because that's what this running back class is. It's complementary parts. Like, there's some really good guys here. Also, I don't know if it necessarily is a fit in New England, but I love him. Blake Corum was so good.
I love Blake Corum, man.
He even ran better than I expected him to. A 4.53 was fantastic for him. Out of most people expecting him to run 4.65, maybe close to 4.7. No, comes in at a 4.53. He hadn't dropped at least 15 pounds from where he played at in college too, because he came in at 205. That boy was like 220 last season. Yeah, I'm almost positive about that. But he showcased all, and honestly, I saw some tweets about how people are like really impressed with his 3-cone. Do you guys not watch him? You guys not watch him at all? I was not even shocked to see him do all of that. He's a fantastic short area footwork player. He's great vision. We've seen that run. I don't know if it was against Wisconsin, but he's going to the left and he ends up taking it down to the right-hand side. Like, it's intention left, and then he's like, okay, jump, stop, get out to the right, make someone miss, and get out. He's so good at making guys miss, calm with players in the backfield. He's just a really nice guy. Because if I'm remembering correctly, Stevenson is not necessarily a great behind the offensive line player. He's like, if I got a hole, I'm going to go. And if you're in my way, I'm going to run you over. But he prefers to be like a gap. If I have space, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that. When he gets going, when he gets that momentum, when he gets his speed, that's when you can see him really do a good job breaking arm tackles and making guys miss a little bit there. But behind the line compliment Blake Corum would be a very fun thing there. So just a couple guys off the top of my head.
Yeah, Corum's one of those guys where I went into the weekend saying, like, unless his testing is truly horrendous, I don't care. I really don't care. He is a football player. Everything you see from him, it's just the instincts, his ability to just understand space and where he needs to go, how he needs to adjust his routes, cutting back, just taking advantage of leverage. He's fantastic. Another guy that I was really excited about, Dylan Lobby. Now, one got to work out a wide receiver as well. Yeah, of course. Everybody in New England was hoping that he was going to slide under the radar. He's on a lot of people's radars now. Yeah. He kind of had like a 50-50 split with his drills. Or like there were some where it's like, they were fine, nothing crazy. The rest, I was trying to pull it up too, because I know there were some that he just absolutely killed. It was mostly like the agility and the explosiveness drill. Yeah. I'll bring it up real quick. I actually wrote a piece on potential Patriots who benefited most from the combine. If you want to check that out on CLNSmedia.com. Seems like that's relevant to the conversation, but I'll go to my part on Dylan Lobby, where the parts where he really excelled. So broad jump, 40-yard, 20-yard split were just fine. But in the 20-yard shuttle, he was the best among the running backs in 2024. And then he was top 5 in 3-cone and bench press. So that's kind of what you see in his game. We're like, not as much the bench press. You do see he has good contact balance. Like, he's not the biggest guy, but especially seeing him in person, honestly, when you get the Danny Woodhead comps, and he does have that similar kind of running style, he's bigger. Like, he's a bigger guy than I really anticipated he was going to be. He's 5'9", but he's like a pretty built 5'9". But you see he's strong on tape. And then the explosiveness, where you constantly see lower level of competition, obviously, but his ability to break angles is crazy. You'll see multiple guys on one play think they've got him. And you saw it at the Senior Bowl where he just hits the gas. And you're like, oh, no. I'm like the Titanic. I am steering, and I'm not going very far. Where that's fantastic. And then even more than that, the thing that's going to get him on the field is the receiving ability, where the nuance in his routes, you just don't really see very often from running backs, how naturally he catches the football. In fact, he can, I talked to him and asked, what makes you different from other receiving backs? He's like, I can play everywhere. And we talk about Ramondre Stevenson, like he's been the Patriots receiving back. He's not splitting out wide. You're not putting him in the slot and asking him to run routes. It's more on that choice stuff underneath and really just taking advantage of his ability to win in space. But Lobby is somebody I think would be the perfect complement because he can still, perform in that gap scheme where he likes to press inside. He has such good sense for when guys are committed and then just hits the corner where if you just take that one step inside, he's gone. So you can give him like a touch every now and then, like a Danny Woodhead or a James White. But then even more than that, he can win in space and he can be a good receiving back for you and he can pass protect. So he was another guy I was really excited about. Now, moving on from offensive weapons to offensive linemen. Now, this is a class of guys who, especially in the tackle group, was very impressive. Joe Alt already was OT1, and then it was just like, yep, nope, that's why, because he's an absolute freak athlete. Troy Fontenot, I still don't know how to say his last name. Is it Fatanu or Fontenot?
I think it's Fatano. I've gone Fatano.
Okay, Fatanu was crazy athlete, as we all kind of expected, but just the movement ability, crazy for a guy. He's not the biggest guy, but still crazy for an offensive lineman. Yeah. And he passed the benchmark for offensive tackles. That's what we were looking for. 34.5-inch arms, past that 34-inch benchmark. Just overall, who were the guys that really wowed you in terms of, potential guys the Patriots get either, in the first round, second round kind of range, or maybe as more developmental options, maybe on day 3?
Yeah, man, I was so hopeful because I love Troy Fatano. I love him. And I was like, everyone's trying to put him at guard. And I'm just like, please put him at tackle. And if he's bad, fine. Exactly. He'll be a fantastic guard. He can be a fantastic tackle. And now everyone's like, he cleared the benchmark for arms. Yeah, we knew that at the Senior Bowl. He measured, or I believe, actually, Jim, Troy wasn't at the Senior Bowl, but Jim Nagy had tweeted out that he was verified at 34+ inch arms. Like he had verification of that. So love to see that. Also, thank you, Zanal, for the Jawar Jordan. It was the Jawar Jordan running back at Louisville. And also, before I get really quickly, just give a little love to Trey Benson at 6 foot, 6'1", 200+ pounds of running a 4.39. Boy, what ridiculous. But back to the offensive line. I'm going to get sleeper right off the bat because I do think that the Patriots will be needing, I know they probably should be taking a tackle early, especially if Michael Onwenu doesn't come back, which I would be, honestly, I'd be shocked at this point. I would be shocked if he's not in New England next year. But Frank Crum out of Wyoming absolutely blew up the combine, ran a 4.9440 at 313 pounds, and he's 6'8". Like 6'8". That's a long guy. Like that's fantastic. And a 9.6 broad jump for these offensive linemen is really good too. 22 reps on the bench press. You'd like to see him get a little bit more, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who's got nearly 34-inch arms. That's not easy to do. We're going to get to a guy with 34-inch arms who was benching all over the place, and that's going to be a little bit later in the show. But 31.5-inch vertical for Crum, and then a 4.37 short shuttle. That's getting close to the 4.66 craziness. Actually, no, the 4.33 craziness that we've seen by some of these offensive linemen. Like it's hard to do at 6'8". So he's a guy who, playing at Wyoming, you're not going to get eyes on a ton of people, but the athletic benchmarks are all there. The ability to grow, obviously, he's going to have to get a little bit stronger, but movement side to side, the ability to pass protect and get recovery athleticism is huge for offensive linemen. And obviously, one of the things that New England has been known for over the past years is developing offensive linemen. And I think that's something that they can do off the start. But another guy probably on day 2 played with Troy Fontenot, Roger Rosengarten, who he had the most had the best 40 time among offensive linemen at 4.92. These Washington tackles, man, people just think that they're going to be pushed to guard or just not very good. These guys are really, really good players. And he's 6'5", 308 pounds. I'd like to see him a little bit heavier, just a tad heavier. Now, I don't know if the Patriots have arm length benchmarks. I know specific teams have 34-inch arms. We're not going to make an exception unless you're like a technical, fantastic guy. So I don't know if they do or not. You'll be the one to tell me that. But 1.73 10-yard split. Dude's explosive. 30-inch vertical, 9.5 broad jump, and then 20-yard short shuttle, which was 4.6. So better than Crum. So he's another guy who is a much better tackle than people give credit for. I don't think he's going to be able to play left in the NFL. I think he's solely a right tackle, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with getting a right tackle who's probably going to play in the league for 8 to 10 years and just be a really good player. I don't think there's anything that I'm truly worried about in his game. Like, I don't think that he's going to start and then you're going to have like problems immediately. He's got very good pass protection skills. He's always messing with these guys. You see on both him and Fatano's tape where there's kind of like flashing a little bit of hand here, kind of a press or attack setting. 45, you get a little bit of vertical. So they do a really nice job of keeping guys guessing in their pass protection. And they're also really physical in the run game. They get off the ball and they come out with these physical hands, and they use pretty good hand location. That's one of the things that you want to see them improve upon as well. So Fatano obviously was really impressive, and Rosengarten was awesome as well. But and the last guy I'm going to talk about is the tackle out of Yale. I do apologize. I can't pronounce your last name. And it makes
me the same way. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It's tough, man. But he's
all due respect. All due respect.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I'm not here trying to make fun of people in the name and stuff like that. I'm not going to pronounce it if I don't know how, and I'll get to the point on draft day where I can. I'll practice it, and so my apologies to you, good sir. But you're a fantastic athlete, and I love what you bring to the game, because I think that a lot of people overlook guys out of Princeton or Yale or these Ivy League schools. But last year, Andrei Yoshevas comes out a wide receiver at the Senior Bowl, puts on a show. He's an athlete. He tests really well. He had some really good moments with the Bengals this past year when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase injured. He comes out and he scores a couple touchdowns. Like, oh, maybe there's something there. There is something to these guys, especially the good athletes, because they don't get the seasoning. That's not their fault. Like, these guys are going to be more developmental players that are still learning the nuances of where to put your hands. How exactly are you getting into your 45? How explosive are you getting back? And you need to always beat the edge rushers to their spot. So you're in that position. Doesn't always have to be a passive set. So I think that just the athletic benchmarks for him are really good. And I think that he's going to be a player that is, again, more development, probably still a day 2 player, but you're going to have to kind of set aside some time to show him the nuances of the game. So those are a couple offensive linemen that I really like in this combine.
Yeah, like him and Kingsley Suamataia are guys where, like, on day 2, if you want like earlier guys, if you sign like a Jonah Williams, where it's like, all right, you have someone who's played tackle in the league, solid technician. He's not great, but he's better than really any other option you're going to get if you want to move on with Frank Brown. Those are 2 guys where it's like, all right, they need to be developed, but as soon as they're ready, those are guys you could just slide in and have start for you, because they're already fantastic athletes. They just got to catch up a little bit more otherwise. Those Washington tackles, man, I saw somebody say that they played tackle like corner, which makes sense because offensive line and cornerback technique is very similar. And I was like, that's spot on. Because, like, good cornerbacks basically play like good press corners.
Yeah.
It's almost like boxing, It's like leverage, it's striking and timing and all those things. And those 2 guys have it in spades. They're absolutely fantastic. Really, really impressive tackle class we got. Now, going over to the other side of the ball, looking at some defensive linemen. Now, for the Pats, like, we understand that, like, someone like a Braden Fisk, he's probably not a fit for them, right? He's got the short arms, which means it's tough for him to 2-gap and be really effective against the run. And he's a smaller guy. He's a penetrator. Now, as far as we know, the Patriots are going to keep continuing with their scheme where it's more 2-gap heavy. You like your space eaters, your guys who can control an offensive lineman and shed rather than getting upfield. So relative to that, and then on the outside, they like their bigger guys who can hold up against the run. But we've seen them go both ways, where in one draft you get Anthony Jennings, who's a big outside linebacker, run stopper, and then you get Josh Uche, who everybody knew it's like, this guy's a situational pass rusher. Maybe he grows into more, but as long as he can win as a pass rusher, he'll be fine. So with all those caveats in place, who are some defensive linemen you think the Patriots could take on day 2 or day 3 to potentially add some depth, with them no longer having Lawrence Guy, Matthew Judon being up there in age, and also not understanding where they're going to be right now in terms of their youth at the edge position outside of Keon White?
So I'm going to start off with a guy who I don't think is the best on-field mover, but that's fine because he's the strongest, by definition, the strongest defensive lineman out there, with 33 and a quarter or 33 and an 8-inch arms at 34 bench presses. That's absurd. It's absurd. Jordan Jefferson, LSU defensive tackle. And honestly, when we were watching the defensive tackles, we were like, okay, there's some movement skills here for the on-field stuff. It was inconsistent, but it was there. Like, you say, okay, there's some ability there. When you have 33-inch arms, you're 313 pounds. He takes on double teams very well. And I do think that at the NFL level, with the strength that he's going to possess, you're probably also going to want him to put on a little bit more weight, especially if you're going to put him at 0 or 1 and say, take on a double team. You're going to want a little more sand in the pants. So I think that he's already got the upper body strength to do that. Now, pair that with an immovable anchor, and we're cooking with gas here. So he's someone, he didn't do the 40-yard, but he jumped 31 inches for one of the bigger guys. It's not the best for him, but it does a
nose
pretty good
tackles
job.
aren't out there to like jump out the gym or like outrace anybody. Like if you're a nose tackle, you're playing in there. We know what you're there for. Also, would be so
absolutely
if he ended up being the successor to fellow LSU grad Devon Gottschall. How amazing would that be?
It would be so fun. It'd be a lot of fun just to watch teammates get back together. Like I always love to see when teammates are drafted to the same team, because they get that comfortness, and sometimes when you have that comfortability, they start to grow a little bit easier. So I mean, I like that his ability to be that kind of set him down and let him be a two gapping or a double team eater. And then there's another guy who I don't necessarily think is the strongest in the class, but he did the second highest reps at 29 reps at Tyler Davis, Clemson defensive tackle, came in at 6'2", 301 pounds. So also maybe another guy who's going to put on a little bit more weight depending on where he goes. He's got shorter arms. He doesn't have the long arms there. He's a defensive tackle through and through. 6'2", 31 and 3/4 or 3/8 inch arms. Fits the bill, but he also has that lower body strength. He really does have the sand in his pants. Even if he doesn't have the necessary like 330-pound weight, he can just get in there, and it's hard to move him. He without the long arms, he doesn't keep guys at bay. He kind of gets underneath, and he just kind of like, you can't move me. Good luck doing that. So again, he's got upper body strength and the ability to kind of get in there and be a pain in the ass, and that's experience playing at Clemson. He was a senior this year, so he's got experience playing and doing a lot of that. But the initial burst off the line is good as well, which makes him more of that. I'm going to try to penetrate, but when I get double teamed, I'm just going to sit here and you're not going to be able to move me. So I like his fit there as well. Over a defensive end, I think that one of the things that I'm looking for, because if you can correct me if I'm wrong, is this Josh Uche's last year in, or is he? So he's on the last year. He's about to be a free agent.
Yeah, he's about to be a free agent. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they need a little bit of that, and I'm personally interested. I don't know what the incoming staff is going to want at defensive end, if they're going to want to go some more of that quick twitch, or if they want someone who's going to be what they usually want, the big physical guys that you can move around, maybe rush from the 3-tech every now and then. But the top guys probably aren't on the board for them, right? They're probably not, like a Dallas Turner, Chop Robinson. Maybe you have to trade up into the back end of the first round.
That's what I was going to ask you, actually, is do you think that now it's just like he's going in the – because I'm looking at the PFF mock draft, and they still got him going like, early-ish middle of the second round, and I take him because he's there, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm kind of cheating here, because he might have put himself firmly in that first-round combo.
You might have to go get him at the end of the first. Yeah. You don't want to leave it to chance. And I think the Patriots might make some swings in this draft, because like I said, it's a new regime. It's a new – I don't know how the incoming GM is going to draft, but aggressive styles typically pay off, and if they don't, okay, you try to make something happen. So Chop is a guy I think is still going to go at the end of the first, because this defensive end class is going to get pushed down due to the offensive talent that is in this class. So he's an option, but also a guy that is an underrated player. And he's going to go probably on day 3, but the explosive metrics are here. We're talking about 4.57 40 with a 1.58 split at defensive end and 248 pounds. Mohamed Kamara out of Colorado State. That's the kind of build that I'm thinking of. Again, with 23 reps on the bench, he's physically strong. The athletic ability is there, and he has a frame to still put on some more weight. That's what you like to see, a 248 pound player that comes in at 6'1" and 32-inch arms. So it's not as big as you might want, but he's going to be more compact with that explosive first step, and still the ability with the strength that he possesses to shock offensive linemen and then grow as a player. He's clearly got some growth to do, but he's got such violent hands. And for these guys that are coming out of like Colorado State or some of the lesser known schools, the Division II schools or the FCS schools, they need seasoning. And I think that the Patriots are a place, again, you have a ton of guys that know how to pass rush in the NFL. like a ton of experience. You bring in some of these younger guys that have all the athletic traits, try to grow them a little bit, and maybe you take a swing on Chalk Robinson. Who knows? Because who knows if Josh Uche is going to be back next year? And I don't think Chop is what Josh Uche is. Josh Uche is a much more refined pass rusher than I think anyone really gives him credit for. But that first step acceleration is ungodly good. It's a ridiculous thing to watch. So him or Muhammad Kamara from a speed perspective, I think Chris Braswell out of Alabama, the other Alabama edge rusher, is more of the physical. I'm going to work. I'm going to come in, bring a lunch pail, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get after the pass rusher. Not the best athlete in the world, but they ran a 4.6 40. He has a good first step, a nice toolbox of pass rush moves, and he's very physical in the run game. I was a little disappointed in his Senior Bowl. He didn't really do as much as I expected, but I also didn't expect the offensive tackles to show out like they did at the Senior Bowl. It was just tackle, great tackle, everyone doing a fantastic job. So you take that into consideration with Braswell, but he's a guy who's going to go on day 2. Long. Let me just pull up his numbers here really quickly, but I think that he's one of the longer guys in this class. I could be mistaken. 33.25-inch arms. He's 6'3" and 251. So he kind of fits that mold. You could also put more weight on him, get him to 260 or 265, and he has the frame to really do something with it. And he got a good vertical, 33 and a half. You'd like to see that for a defensive end. And again, like I said, all the different ways that he attacks, I think his pass rush toolbox is better than Dallas Turner's. So Dallas Turner's out there beating everyone with athletic ability and speed. But I think that Braswell has a much better understanding of, I'm not him. So I need to have more tools in my box. I can threaten the outside. I can get back to the inside. So he's a guy that I think that did a pretty good job with his athletic numbers. Again, he's kind of in the middle with his production and being the other guy outside of Dallas Turner, but I think he's also in that fit for them on day 2 if they go defensive end. So there's a couple more guys.
And one thing for the Patriots, shout out Alex Barth. He actually pointed this out to me, but it can always change now that they're under a new regime and Belichick's not the main guy making decisions. But they had a tendency when it came to like edge rushers or edge defenders to really focus on the guy opposite whoever was like the locked in first round pick, like the guy that everybody was talking about. They're like, all right, I'm more interested in whoever's on the other side because obviously they like to be, in that style where they're more contained and you get after the quarterback, but there's a level of discipline that you've got to have. And a lot of the time, if you have one edge rusher where these first guys are usually just great speed rushers and just can get after you that way, the other guy has to be more disciplined where it's okay, this guy may go around, so if the quarterback steps up, I need to be able to get off my block and capitalize on whatever the guy across from me is doing. So it would make a lot of sense if the Patriots, if this is still one of the things that they like to do in their scouting department to say, hey, we may not get Dallas Turner, but we're still going to get a really good player, obviously, from a high pedigree system. All right, closing it out with defensive backs. Now, the Patriots, cornerback is a weird situation for them, right? Because you got Christian Gonzalez. But then Jonathan Jones, still a really good player. He's battling injury pretty much all last season. J.C. Jackson was cut to save $13 million, but the door is open for him to come back 2 years removed from the ACL injury. Like Mayo said, he could probably be moving better, so they could bring him back. Behind them, it's really a lot of bodies. Miles Bryant's a free agent. Then you got Alex Austin, Marco Wilson, Sean Wade. Alex Austin could be a diamond in the rough. We still don't know. He had that really impressive interception against the Bills where he read Josh Allen and baited him into a throw, but you still aren't sure. And then you look at safety. We have no idea what's going on with Kyle Duggar. Beyond that, we know that Adrian Phillips is no longer on the team. Then you got Jalen Mills, free agent. He could end up going somewhere where he can get a full-time role. So really, you're locked in guys with Jabril Peppers, who's obviously very good, but in the last year of his deal, and Marte Mapu, who's going to have to make a pretty significant jump from where he was last season. So I'm thinking sometime in rounds 3 to later, we could see some kind of defensive back fall to the Patriots. And maybe they say, hey, we kind of like where we are with quarterback or offensive tackle. We got good depth at all these other positions. Maybe we try to show some love to the defense and get them a guy where they can, develop him and be a contributor pretty early on. So who do you think fits the role, whether it's at cornerback and or safety in that kind of middle to late range for the Patriots?
I'm going to go, he's a little bit higher on the board for me, but it feels like one of these cold weather team kind of DBs. And Mike Sanders, still out of Michigan, is a guy that can do it all. He can play corner. He can play slot. I think he can play safety because he's that high football IQ. Playing wide receiver, he knows pretty much exactly how a wide receiver is going to move. He uses that to his advantage, and seeing the micro movements of these wide receivers, how they're going to sell routes, and you watch his tape and you're like, yeah, that guy played wide receiver. He knows what he's doing, and he's a thumper. He's 5'9", 182 pounds. We're stacked. He's a stacked, compact guy, and I love everything about him. I love everything about him. He probably is going to be a round 2 guy. Like,
in between fighting for our lives with that cocktail sauce, we were just like, oh my God, Mike Sanderson. Woo, he's amazing.
That's exactly what we were doing. We were like, oh, I got to get over this. Let's talk about something else. Hey, Mike Sanderson was awesome at football. Like, that's exactly what happened. And he's so much fun to watch. Like I said, you can tell the movement skills are all there. And I love that he's unafraid to blitz. He can come downhill, contribute in the run game. He will tackle. He does not have any issues doing that. So he's somebody I'm a big fan of. Someone who improved the draft stock, I think, specifically with the on-field drills. Cam Hart, Notre Dame safety. He's not going to be a cornerback.
He keeps going up, I feel like.
Yeah, he does. I think he's probably going to go 4th or 3rd round. This safety class is down. It's not a great safety class, and some of the athletic testing scores kind of showed, okay, well, these guys are going to be football players. They're going to be in 2 high systems. They're going to be rotational guys. I don't think you have anyone who's just going to be a free high safety. Now, I haven't done a ton of film on the safety room, but I watched Cam Hart in these drills. I've seen a couple of games of him specifically, watching other offenses, and he moves extremely well for a 6'3", 202-pound guy. Like, he could probably come down and be a dime backer in some cases as well. Like, he has that build to him, and he's so fluid. His hips we were so good moving in all of the drills. You could not tell he was 6'3", 33-inch arms. Like, this is a freak in terms of safety.
Sure, he's not a small edge, like, Jesus.
Right? 33-inch arms, and he ran a 4.5. It's not like he's slow by any stretch either. So he's got a lot of positional versatility in there as well. You might even sign him up against some tight ends. He's got that height, length, speed to keep up with them as well. So that's something that you can really, especially with how tight ends are trying to get more athletic and they're using them like Sam Laporta in Detroit. It'd be nice to put someone on him and say, hey, go stop that guy. We don't want him to beat us. And that's something I think Cam Hart can develop into in the NFL. So he's another player. We're going to talk really quickly about your guy, Renardo Green, who this is somebody that, honestly, if you guys do yourselves a favor and go look at all the speeds for the Florida State guys, they all were fast. 4.49 for Renardo Green, and it's 10-10 broad jump, nearly an 11-inch broad jump, or is it feet? I can't remember. That's feet. 10 feet, 10 inches. All the numbers are really floating around in there. So you got 37.5-inch vertical. And a 1.53 10-yard split, which is really good, explosive numbers for, again, if you're going to be playing off a little bit, you're going to play some man coverage, you have to be able to recover. You can get that first step explosion back. You have the ball skills to come down and read and be able to play a little cover 3, a little cover 2, and close space well. All the things you're really looking for. And 31.25-inch arms at 6 foot, 186 pounds. Like, he's cornerback all the way. Like, that's exactly what I want in a cornerback build. Maybe a little bit heavier, but 186 is nothing to sniff at. But again, he looked really good on the field as well. And I do like that he's a guy that manned up against Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors at LSU. And was like, I am not afraid, and did not show bad at all. He was very, very good in that football game. So you turned me on to him. Like, I was watching him a little bit on Saturday, and I've watched a little bit today. Like, this guy's going to be a really good football player, and he's someone I do think is going to be 4th round, maybe 3rd round, but he's probably going to be early day 3, and that's definitely someone that I like looking at versatility for the Patriots. I really do. So guys that can play slot, play on the outside, maybe play a little bit of third safety every now and then. And I think that all of the guys that I mentioned have the ability to do multiple things. And that's something that I believe the Patriots want specifically. Yeah.
And so going back to Sanders still, he reminds me a lot of Miles Bryant in the IQ, the versatility, and the toughness, right? Where you'll see Miles Bryant, he's usually in the slot, but he can play a lot of safety. Like when they had some injuries, he was lining up all over the defensive backfield. and he's known for his intelligence, his hard hitting. It's the athleticism where he falls kind of short. And I feel like Sanders still, he can kind of give you that bridge where it's like, yeah, I'm smart, I'm versatile, all these things, but I'm also a good athlete and I can make some plays. And then with Renardo Green, I know that he's got some issues, like outside of the man coverage stuff.
Yeah.
But the way I see it is like, do what you did with J.C. Jackson early in his career. They had the luxury of having a stacked secondary, but it was like, all right, J.C., or even with Jack Jones at times, they were like, you're not going to play on early downs. We're going to try to protect you against the run and keep you out of zone coverage. Just man up when we know the pass is coming and lock this guy down, and we're good.
Yeah.
And I highly doubt the Patriots are going to shift to some kind of zone-heavy scheme. I think they still understand that the best coverage you can play if you're just trying to stop another team is cover one. Simplest thing, if you can do it and you can do it at a high level, that's how you get it done. So I really do like those guys. I'm hoping Renardo slips to like the 4th round so they can take care of all their offensive needs and be like, let's just get a fun guy for the defense.
Because of his kind of, like you said, deficiencies in the run game. That's a day 3 guy. Like, he's good man coverage, and a lot of teams play a lot of zone. It's going to push him down boards. And honestly, like you said, the physicality stuff, it can get better in the NFL, but those guys typically fall to day 3, and scheme-specific man coverage guys with good athletic ability are usually just a plenty on day 3.
Yep. Especially in this league. Everybody's trying to play zone. Everybody wants eyes on the quarterback. Everybody wants the Fangio system split. And it makes sense because he's got all the explosive passing attacks. Honestly, it'll be interesting to see what happens next season. Obviously, we still got plenty of the too high stuff, but just kind of seeing someone like a Patrick Mahomes, how much more reliant he is on the underneath passing game. And there were defenses that didn't adjust to it. And they were like, oh, we're still going to play like this as Mahomes with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And he was just like, okay, sure. I'll just pick you apart underneath. So that'll be a fascinating watch. Yeah. One last thing before I get you out of here. I saw some comments about Michael Penix Jr. in the chat. Now, obviously, we did see that the medicals are good. Teams are happy with that. Are you still sold on, if teams are comfortable with his medicals, that he is a first-round pick? Because I feel like he's someone I don't really mention in these conversations, mostly because the injuries scared me. Then there's the age. There's just the fact that he has wonky mechanics, and it's not something that's probably ever going to get fixed. So then you have to put him in a system where the offensive line can give him time, make him comfortable, and then he gets a few years under his belt where he's not getting harassed and, can figure out how to play within his game in an NFL system. So that's why, again, I get kind of crap for not mentioning Penix. I just don't think he's a good fit for the Pats. But do you think he is someone, if you think he's a good fit for the Pats, let me know. But also, do you think he's done enough with the medicals, and he did impress in Indy, to really firmly be in that first-round conversation?
So I think that there's going to be a team that maybe trades up at the back half or the back end of the first round to get Michael Penix. I think he was much better. He was probably, he was better than Nix in the passing drills during the combine. I think he's a better thrower personally, in terms of, obviously he's got a hose. Like the guy can just throw a missile when he wants to, but he does have to wind up. He just does. And teams, for whatever reason, don't like lefties. They just, unless Tua was drafted in the top 5, but what's Tua really done? He's in the scheme-specific offense where he's
undefeated against the Pats, to be fair. He's undefeated against the Pats. That's more an indictment on the Pats than Tua. I will say that I feel like I have to give him his flowers there, because I'm just like, as a Pats follower, like I can't really say crap about Tua. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. Like when it comes to like playing these really good defenses, when it's like, all right, Tua, it's your time to show us what you got, you're absolutely right. It's usually not good.
Yeah. So specifically with the Patriots, I'm going to list the quarterbacks that I know that the Patriots have met with and the ones that they haven't. So they have met with Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Spencer Rattler, Kendon Slovis, Sam Harmon, and Joe Milton. They have not met with anyone else. So they have not met with Michael Penix, which should tell us that he's not a fit, and that's not someone that they're going to. But I don't think he's a first-round pick, and that's mostly because he has to be in an offense that gives him time with a good offensive line, has playmakers on the outside that can win vertically. Yes. He doesn't throw the ball over the middle of the field. And now, obviously, there is room to grow there. There is. I think that his best range of outcome is Geno Smith. I think he could be Geno Smith with the right development. Mm-hmm. Geno doesn't throw the ball over the middle very much either. And when he does, it's like he picks out a window and he's like, I'm going to throw this as hard as I can and fit it in this window. And that's something Penix can do as well. But I think that he needs to develop as a seer of the field, the checkdowns. I think that he did a really good job against Texas, showcasing I can get out of the pocket and do some things here. It wasn't consistent, and Michigan really kind of showed you, hey, you change the picture a little bit, you get after him, it doesn't look very good. And that is my worry. So there's going to be some things with him physically, the getting outside the pocket consistently, throwing over the middle of the field that, in my opinion, drops him on to day 2.
I agree. Thank you so much for coming on, buddy. A delight as always. Now, please, before I let you go, let the people know where they can find you and what excellent stuff you got coming down the pipeline.
Man, you listed it off the start, but we got 4 different places that I put content out. I'm going to be working on a piece for NFL 33 about my time at the combine, some of the things that I saw that we got to do that. So that's going to come out hopefully this week. Again, I got lots of stuff going on. I'm going to be doing a Troy Fatano offensive breakdown on rgrfootball.com for Wednesday. That's where I do all my Chiefs coverage, but it's going to be a prospect breakdown. So don't worry, guys. I know you don't like the Chiefs, but it's a prospect breakdown. So don't worry about that. I also work at Football Guys for fantasy content. Probably after draft season, I'll do more stuff over there. And then I have the Cover Weekly Draft podcast, which is every single week. We cover the draft all year round. So thank you so much for having me again. I'm glad we got to spend some time in Indy, and I'm glad to be right back talking ball with you because it's a great time, as always.
It's always great talking to you, buddy. And likewise, getting to meet and mingle and everything. You're just as amazing in person as you are in all these shows. I appreciate you so much and appreciate you all for watching, as always. Now, take care of yourselves.